The following audio may contain the personal testimonials of some Optavia coaches or clients of Optavia. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified, and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the Optavia team.
All right, everybody. I'm super excited to bring this topic for you tonight. We got folks that are rolling in here. So that's really exciting. I'm thrilled to bring this topic. My name is Craig Blanchett, and I'm I'm an Optavia coach, certified actually, and it's my pleasure to bring you this Habits of Health webinar tonight. The title is called Discipline versus Deprivation. And when I thought about this topic, I'll go into a little bit of detail about how I came up with this topic and sort of why it was on my mind. But I'm curious for those that are joining in the chat. By the way, way to go. We got a full house tonight. That's super exciting. When you think about the word and when you hear the word discipline, what comes to your mind? Go ahead and chat it, put it in the chat window. By the way, we do have the Q&A window open, and if you ask some questions as I'm going, I'll try and answer those towards the end. So the Q&A is separate from the chat. But what I hear, here's some of the things that I see here. When you hear discipline, controlled, restriction, strict, rigor, order, self-control, consequences, focus, dedication, control. A lot of the sim hard. I like that one. Following a leader, being bad. Ooh, interesting. Boundaries. It's necessary for growth. I like it. Punishment. Good one. Doing something very hard to ask yourself to do. So these are a bunch of things that I see from what you guys are there. So we got the word, that's the word discipline, right? Now let's change that up a minute and think about the word deprivation. What do you think about when you see the word or hear the word deprivation? So I hear people say, oh, I can't have that. I'm not eating that, right? Have you ever said that? Heard that in your brain? Scarcity, lacking, missing out, giving up the good stuff, starvation, suffering, punishment, denial. Ooh, look at all these. Lack of, wanting, giving up. Yeah, lots of these. Diet. Yeah, the four-letter word, diet, right? You know what everyone says is, you've probably heard the term, this is totally a side note, but sometimes I oftentimes go, what do they mean by that? You've heard the term diets don't work. Well, diets do work, but they only work for losing weight temporarily. What they don't work is lasting change. That's why diets don't work. And that's why when you think about being on a diet, you eventually will be off the diet and now you're on to something else. But total side note there, let's get back to it. So basically I find, and actually I think being disciplined, many people think this, means being deprived. And they sure as heck wouldn't want to live that way. Disciplined can mean healthy choices that translate to a meaningful life for you. Have you ever thought about the idea of a meaningful life? Most people seek happiness. They don't seek meaning. And the problem with happiness is you'll never always be happy. As soon as you've achieved a point where you're happy, there'll be something else that comes along that you don't have, or you aren't, and you'll instantly be unhappy. So instead of seeking happiness, think about seeking meaning and purpose. Those things are where that true quality of life really live in. So I did a little search on the old internet and I looked up the word discipline. The word discipline as a verb means to train someone to obey rules or a code of behavior. To train someone to obey rules or a code of behavior. So living a disciplined life means you have a certain structure of things that you do so that they get you what you want. Think about this. When you are driving, let's say you're going to go to the Grand Canyon, and you're on the road heading to the Grand Canyon. Do you think it takes discipline? Like, are you actually, when you're going there, you have a disciplined approach to the destination that you want to go because you're really clear about where you want to go. So you're disciplined to follow the GPS so that you get to your destination in a shorter period of time as possible so you can enjoy the Grand Canyon, right? So that's a disciplined approach. It's actually fairly common to be disciplined in many, many areas of our life, right? We all get up and we brush our teeth. Well, that takes some discipline, but guess what? We got pretty teeth and nice smelling breath. So that's a good thing. So now the word deprivation, that is a noun, right? Deprivation as a noun is change for the worse, deterioration. So think about that. Deprivation is change for the worse or something that would deteriorate, right? So think about that. I also looked up something that was pretty fascinating here. Antonyms for the word discipline. Yeah, take these for a minute and try these on for size. So discipline, the opposite of discipline is agitation, ignorance, chaos, confusion, disorder, disorganization, neglect, negligence. Think about that. Think about someone, if you live an undisciplined life, it will be a life of agitation, chaos, confusion, disorder, disorganization, neglect, negligence. Those are all the opposites of discipline. Somebody said, sounds like all the feelings I had before starting day one. Yeah, think about that. As you're working through this whole thing, which kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to live a life of discipline? Or do you look at making good choices as deprivation, right? So here's a side note. Think about this concept, freedom and restriction. I heard somebody say that if I am free and fully autonomous, means I get to do whatever I want to do. Does a life without restriction, there's a question for you guys if you want to answer it. Does a life without restriction lead to ultimate freedom? What do you guys think? No, yeah, a lot of no's. Think about that. I'm going to eat anything I want. Think about that after a little bit of time. Maybe you do that for 3 to 6 months. Maybe you do that for a year. Think about the reality of how much freedom do you now have in your body to just get out of bed. If you're very overweight because you were free to eat anything you want. Think about it with money. You just spend without reserve. You have no restrictions on your spending. Well then, right, it doesn't lead to freedom. It leads to actually bondage. And on the counter side, a life of discipline actually is the life that leads to that freedom. It talks about in Hebrews 12, I think it's 12:11, it said no discipline in the moment feels good, but rather painful. But it leads to peace and happiness for those who are willing to be trained by it. Think about that. We look at self-discipline, and it leads to actually things that we value deeply. So here's another little concept here. Think about something like food, relationships, and money. 100%, right? Freedom to the extreme. Food, relationships, money. Those sound familiar? How about the trilogy of optimal health? Body, mind, finances, right? So with our health in our body is primarily related to the things we put in our mouth. That affects our physical health more than anything. So we got 100% ability to do whatever, anything we want. Total freedom is a reduction in health, a reduction in movement, and you feel sick. Relationships, 100% freedom to do whatever I want, and no discipline leads to broken hearts, betrayal, and broken families. Many other things too. Think about money. I talked about this a minute ago. Debt, bankruptcy, stress, and overwhelm. By the way, did you know there was a study done that getting your finances healthy has twice as much of an effect on your physical health than anything else you can do. Twice as much. Imagine that. The hope that your finances are going to get better takes a dramatic amount of stress off your body, off your mind. So anyway, good stuff there. So now think about discipline. If you discipline yourself with the foods that you're eating, eventually you will achieve a healthy body. Think of something else. You'll be free to play. I love play, by the way. And here's a term that I coined a while ago. You have more yes days. And what a yes day, here's what I consider a yes day. When I wake up in the morning and I ask my body a question, can I do this today? I want it to say yes more than it says no. And you get more yes days when you have discipline with the things that you eat, right? Think about this. Think about in relationships. When you have discipline with your relationships, you have fulfillment, you have commitment, you have the joy of deep, meaningful friendships. Wow, that's so important, so valuable. And then the third element of the trilogy is finances. You know what? If you have a disciplined life with your finances, you will learn you'll be free to give. You'll reduce that stress, and you'll have some savings. I don't know about you, but there was one time when I had no savings, and now I do. And there was one time I had a lot of debt, and now I only have a mortgage, right? And so the difference there is unbelievable, to be essentially debt free. Here's a couple things that I hear in my mind. And if you guys hear these, maybe you can comment on some things you might hear in your mind. I can't have that. I'm being good. Anybody ever said that? Oh no, I can't have that. I'm being good. Oh, I'm eating healthy. I can't go out to eat. I can't go out with you guys tonight. I can't go, to lunch with you. I'm eating healthy, right? Being good. Oh my goodness, all the time. Yes, I want that. All right. No, that's not on my program. There's another one. Yep. I choose not to have that, right? Think about that though. It kind of comes off as a little bit of depriving yourself. And I wonder when you do something, I'm going to call it the switcheroo. We'll get to that in just a little minute here. But here was a Facebook meme that I saw that I thought was just super funny. And it said this: we all love being healthy, but we hate the discipline of getting healthy, right? The discipline of getting healthy is weighty, but we love the benefits of it, right? Who's with me? Right? Exactly. And so, and then here's the other thing is we all love getting fat, but we hate being fat. Anybody heard that one before? We love being healthy, but we hate getting there. We love getting fat, but we hate being fat, right? Or unhealthy, you know. I'm sure that resonates with many of you. So here we're getting to the switcheroo, right? The switcheroo. It's actually, I mean, it's kind of a simple math problem, but I know some of you guys probably hated the word problems when you had a word problem and it had math in it. You had to figure it out. Well, this is kind of simple. It's a basic word math problem. Two negatives make a positive. Are you ready for this? What if we began depriving ourselves from missing out on those memories? What if you were to deprive yourself from emergency room visits? What if you deprived yourself from having to continually go and fill prescriptions for chronic health issues? What if you deprived yourself from having to buy bigger clothes? What if you were to deprive yourself from not being able to go on the rides at Disneyland? What if you did a switcheroo and you said, I'm not depriving myself from the good things of life. I'm depriving myself from regret of having a no day, of having something I missed out on, right? Interesting little kind of, you can change that double negative. Deprive yourself from the thing you don't want and discipline yourself to chase after the thing you do want. Think about that. The idea of every time you said no can be viewed as depriving yourself, right? But is it actually depriving yourself when you say no? There was a study mentioned in Time magazine. It was a Time magazine article, and it showed that people who show high self-control feel good, and that translates to a better mood. The article suggests self-discipline can make you happier, not only in the long run, but also in the moment. When you feel like you are the CEO of your life, you feel good, period. Think about this. Remember back to the first week when you were on the 5 and 1. Who all, yeah, I mean, a lot of us have been, we had that first week of the 5 and 1, and we had a lot of pain that motivated us to make some change. So we had a lot of motivation, right? And then you had a structure that was simple, right? Wasn't easy, but it was simple. And you just had to get that first meal in within an hour. And then you had to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And then your biggest challenge of the day was your lean and green. That wasn't too big of a challenge. And then you got some water. Maybe the biggest challenge was getting to the bathroom. Who's with me, right? You have to go to the bathroom so many times on that first week. And so at the end of each day, there was something unique about how you felt. I believe that's the satisfaction of discipline. You were being the CEO. You were in control. You were calling the shots. You were saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm using the self-discipline, and I'm not depriving myself. If I'm depriving myself from anything, it's from the things that I don't want. And I'm disciplining myself so I actually get what I want, right? Maybe over time things changed and you fell short of that discipline. And that's where that deprivation thing kind of came into, you started feeling like you were depriving yourself. So I've got a couple examples here that I want to go through, and then I want to answer some of your questions. By the way, thanks for all the feedback from people there's so many that I can't really read it right here, but thanks for all the feedback. So I started working with, I work with some teens and preteens on kind of get their mindset set up right and helping them to achieve goals. And so there's a boy that I've been working with. I think he's 12. His name's Shlomo. And so if you're listening, Shlomo, this whole topic was created in my experiences working with you, which has been an absolute blast, right? And so I talked with Shlomo, and I figured out, what is it that you want? I didn't want him to feel like he was depriving himself. I wanted him to start to build a life lesson and a life skill where he could succeed and use a structure to actually get the things that were important to him to become the person that he wanted to be. And so I asked him what he wanted, and he said, well, I want to be faster at tag, because he plays tag at school recess, and he wanted to be fast enough to be able to outrun some of the boys and they could catch him. So we called it Mission Tagile. He wanted to be more agile with tag. So then I had some conversations with his mom. Of course, I'm working through his mom. And she said, well, I don't want him to feel deprived and like he's missing out when he goes over to friends' house, or when he's, with his friends at lunch, or, I just don't want him to feel deprived. And so we talked about the idea of how discipline could serve him his whole life. And it's a simple switcheroo from going from discipline so I get what I want versus depriving myself of things that make me feel good just temporarily. And so we talked through that whole idea of focusing actually on what you want most versus just what's going to satisfy you in the moment. I believe, and here's a Craigism, I believe that if you always get what you want in your immediate circumstance, you will never achieve the things that you have meaning, the most meaning in your life. Immediate gratification never leads to satisfaction, deep, true satisfaction. So here's another example. I do a lot of wheelchair racing, or I used to do a lot of wheelchair racing. And so I've been a professional athlete for years, have had lots of success with racing. If you Google my name, you'll see some stuff, some funny hair moments as well. That's kind of fun. And so when I was preparing for a race, and when I was preparing, you had to constantly maintain and be working on your athleticism, how your sleep, all these different things. And I don't know about you, but whether you're a professional athlete or not, every morning you wake up. Sometimes it's to an alarm, sometimes it's not, right? And then that's the first moment of your day where you get to make a decision. And that first moment can decide how your whole day goes. And your whole day flows into how your whole life goes, quite frankly. And so when that alarm goes off, you've set an appointment with your future the night before, and that alarm goes off. I would curious if you hit snooze and you say, I don't have to keep that appointment with myself. You might think about that, because this guy, Jocko Willink, he's wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. Super, super great book. We're going to talk about a couple quotes from him. But he says the first decision, when that goes off, you've got 10 seconds to cast the vision for that day. So you wake up and you get up and you go do it. And that's a decision that you make. And that's a little bit of self-discipline, right, that you have. And that sets up your whole day. Now, for me, here's my little secret weapon. I know that if I'm the only one that knows that I was going to get up that morning, I have an easier time not doing that. So I've set up some accountability because I have other people in my life. This is our community that we talk about. One of the 4 pillars is I set up workout buddies that need me as much as I need them. And we've decided to have accountability to work out together. And it is 100%. If I know they're showing up, I always get up. So you might think about putting that self-discipline in your life and using some structure to be successful. Here's another one that was a personal testimony in my own life. And it was about family vacations. And so there was a few times when we went to Disneyland or Disney World and we didn't really save. We just sort of bought the tickets and worked it out. And then we were away on the vacation and and we didn't really have the money saved. And so it was sort of like when there was a lot of no's, because we really didn't save. And, if we were it was always penny pinching and kind of working things out. And 3 years later, we had saved, and we had a budget for incidentals, just $800, right, to spend on however we wanted to. We came back with 600 of it. I think we only spent a couple hundred of it. But anytime there was an unforeseen opportunity, I knew we could afford it. I'm telling you what, it was the same Disneyland, a completely different trip. But that required discipline to save and work it out, because this outcome that we wanted was different. So that's that self-deprivation. I wasn't depriving myself. Actually, I was giving myself exactly what I wanted. A trip that was awesome. A trip where we didn't have to say, we could say yes because we used that discipline. So Jocko Willink, he is the Willink. He's the co-author of Extreme Ownership. He said this quote, pretty powerful quote: "People look for the shortcut, the hack." He says the shortcut is a lie. Let me say that again. People look for the shortcut or the hack. The shortcut is a lie. Oh man, when I heard that, I was like, what's up, man? That was fired up, right? So here's a little summary. Before I get into summary, I have a couple of mantras. And I find that if I repeat something in my mind, when I get to a decision-making thing, I have this sort of recording that plays. And so I want you guys to stop what you're doing, whether you're listening to the recording later or whether you're listening live right now. And a lot of you are listening live. I love that. Is stop and say this out loud. When you visualize yourself to a point where you have something you want deeply, and then you have something that you want right now. So let's say you're trying to get to that next 10-pound weight goal, or that next set of pants, or whatever that thing is. And then you have Memorial Day come up, and there's Cinnabon all over the place. I don't know what it is, right? So you say, this is worth it. Say it with me. This is worth it. I want you guys to do this out loud with me. Here's another one. I do hard things. Ready? Say it with me. I do hard things. That's a little mantra. When something feels a little hard, and your mind will say, that's going to be hard. And then you just go, yeah, but I do hard things. Boom, you go get it, right? Here's another one. Hard things are good, right? Hard things are good. By the way, some of you are asking where to find this recording later, and I will give you, by the end here, you're going to write down a URL. I'll give it to you in the end. But here is our summary and an action item. You ready for this? Discipline is the opposite of deprivation. Deprivation is what we don't want. Discipline gets us what we want most. I'm going to say that again. Discipline is the opposite of deprivation. Deprivation is what we don't want. Deprivation makes it so you don't get what you want. Discipline gets us what we want most, right? And it has to feel weighty, because that's the price you pay for that amazing feeling of accomplishing it. So here's a little secret for some of you that are stuck. I have a lot of podcasts and a lot of conversations with my clients where they lost their momentum they had at the beginning, and they're just kind of stuck. They're not at their goal, but they're not where they started. They're kind of in the middle, right? Sure, that probably speaks to a lot of you. So here's the secret. This is the equation of what will move you past that. The secret to move past the hard or uncomfortable choice and get to the pleasure of securing the results of what you want. Stop what you are doing and dwell on the value of what you want. You've got to stop literally and kind of go into the future and look around. Look at how good it is when you fit into those pants that just make you sing, right? Think about getting on that ride at Disneyland, and you totally fit, like there's extra room. Think about going on that bike ride, or being able to play with your grandkids, or I don't know what it is for you. Going and sitting on an airplane and you just fit, right? So you have to go into the future and spend some time with that reality and harness the power of what that is. Then you have to come back to today and build that daily discipline to move you towards it. But you got to continue to remind yourself about that future value, because there's going to be a price to pay. And I just want to encourage you, it's worth it. It's worth it. So the way that you can find this video and all of our library, we've got a huge library of webinars and podcasts. You can go, ready for this? A simple thing, you can go to YouTube and you can search Optavia Habits of Health. That'll get you there, right? You can see a whole list of those. You can also view these or listen to them on podcast. So podcast is all the audio with no video. And you can just go to any of your iTunes, any one of your podcast players, search for Optavia Habits of Health, and you'll be able to find a list of all those. I want to thank you for your attention today.
This audio may have contained the personal testimonials of some Optavia coaches or clients of Optavia. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the Optavia team.